Lore Together is proud to be part of the Boss Rush Games Network. Feel free to find out more at bossrushgames.com/network. Hi, I'm Safi.
And I'm Mystic.
And this is Lore Together. This is the podcast where a husband and wife team go over all the storytelling, world building, and characters of video games because it's what we like to do together. We lore together.
Yep, and this is episode 117.
Getting close to 120. Woo!
Yep. But before we get into the episode, a few things to talk about. First off, if you'd like to contact us, you can do that many different ways. Instagram, Blue Sky, Mastodon, Reddit, YouTube, Steam, and Discord on the description below. And if you'd like to email us, you can do that over at loretogether@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support this podcast, there's two ways you can do that. First is thumbs up, 5 stars, hearts, whatever it is, wherever you're listening, we appreciate it. The other way is through Patreon at patreon.com/loretogether, where you can pay a per episode pledge to get early access to episodes. Early access to Let's Plays, which I've already started uploading Cyberpunk. I already just finished Riven, which we'll be talking about today.
Yeah.
Jade Empire is coming up. And Safi will get to something at some point.
Well, we're definitely going to be talking about the one shot I'm running for Gen Con, and I was hoping to record that either so that it will be out within the next week from recording this. So yeah. Might sound a little different, though. The mic setup might be different. But other than that, yeah.
So, yeah, and we have mini episodes as well, and Safi will eventually be doing her audiobook for Primal Rage.
Yes, I will be doing that. I did not forget. I think, I hate to say it, late fall, early winter, I'll probably be able to get to that. But
So, anyway, Safi knows what we're doing already today.
yeah, it's not a surprise.
So, we're just going to go with massive spoiler warning. We'll not be giving you solutions for any puzzles in the game, but we will be explaining the lore logic behind some of the puzzles, and also spoiling pretty much all of the new stuff in the remake. Do not listen if you want to explore this on your own, and I highly suggest you do. Even if you know the original like the back of your hand, this one is very different and worth going in blind.
Did you, other than the hint during our Patreon plug, say that we're covering Riven?
No.
Okay. So we're covering Riven because Mystic didn't blatantly say that.
I mean, they should be able to tell by the episode title.
What if they're listening through a series of us? What if they're going through the whole repertoire before they listen to this?
That's fair.
All right. There's people here cleaning their kitchens or driving at their commute. They're not paying attention to what's coming up in their playlists.
That's fair.
All right. So we're doing Riven. It's not a surprise to me, but I haven't played through any of this, and Mystic made me have like one little glimpse of something I barely remember right now because I was in the middle of getting ready for Gen Con stuff.
Yeah. Also, we last covered Riven back in episode 27.
That's ages ago. That
was our 1-year anniversary episode.
So
that was the episode we joined Boss Rush with.
Yeah, that's right. Wait. 1 year? So
it was January of 2021.
And so little buddy oh man. He doesn't feel as little as he was back then anymore, I'll tell you that. Jeez. All right. So,
to recap from our last time.
Okay.
This is the stuff that doesn't change. You know, the general story is still the same. Atreus sends you on a quest to free his wife, Catherine, from prison on Riven.
Yes.
Where Atreus and Catherine had trapped Gen 30 years prior.
Yes, the whole concept of the Book of Atreus, and that is episodes 10 and 11?
10 and 11,
yeah, 10 and 11. If you want to know what the Book of Atreus is, basically the prequel that kind of explains Riven.
Yeah, and it's not been that long since we did Book of Tiana, which is the prequel to Book of Atreus.
Jeez, yeah.
Which we'll also touch on here. Yay.
The Book of Atreus is less soul crushing at the end, so maybe don't read that if you're not in a good mood. Anyway, continuing.
Your job is to trap Gen for good and free Catherine from her cell. To do so, you are given a special linking book that is in fact a prison book, but not a prison age. It's hard to pin down where this lies in the canonicity of things.
Canonicity. Is that a word?
I have no idea, but I'm going with it.
Okay.
People know what I mean. Prison books are in Myst and Riven. We are like the original Riven.
Okay.
Simple, dark void, you go in, you get trapped, and you're stuck there unless someone else activates the link and replaces you.
So is there nothing to interact with in that?
No. Okay. My headcanon is honestly that time just doesn't move when the book's not open.
So you're frozen in place?
That would be my guess, because Cirrus and Achenar, when you open them in Myst 1, are immediately, who are you?
Oh.
You know, or whatever. So it's not like they're walking to you or something. It's they're there. So
you open the book and you can see who's in there, and that's why Cirrus and Achenar are able to communicate with you.
Right. According to Atris's journal, this is in the OG version as well, you're basically slightly severing the link to an age. Which also brings about the headcanon, the fan canon, technically, that some people have, that before he burned the books that were on display in Myst, after you free him, Atris changed those couple passages so the link actually completes, sending them to their ages for Myst 4.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Now, again, prison ages are what are established in Book of Tiana and Myst 4.
Yes.
And they are full-on ages. Food, water, all that stuff. Usually livable. Not always, probably, but usually livable.
But there's also isolation there, too.
Yeah, no way out. All the linking books are dropped into a chasm or an endless void, or just not accessible to the person who is supposed to be imprisoned. Whether they both exist or just one of them is hard to say, and Cyan's view on canon doesn't really help things.
Are they murky on canon?
They are murky on canon intentionally.
Okay.
So we're going to jump the timeline here a little bit. You've played Uru, so we're not spoiling super lot here.
Yeah, just spoil it for me.
And this doesn't affect the storyline of Uru that much. But everything in the Dunnyverse, so Myst and everything, is real.
Right.
And our the games are based off of journals that were found by people who the Millers have seen these journals, and the games and the books are retellings of the real journals and real events.
Oh, okay.
So the canon argument has always been that the most recent version of anything is the reality.
Okay.
Except now, with Riven, unless they go with this idea that these are actually prison ages, that you can complete the link and it sends them to a prison age, we've cycled back to an earlier canon.
Well, that's interesting, too, because we're talking about a lot of stuff that we're finding out from people who don't completely know the art,
right,
as well as their predecessors.
This is true.
Gen and Atris are somewhat ignorant of it, and Tiana even, she's good at it and she knows it. But, I mean, she was still, when in her 30s when she no longer really had a community to support her doing that. And you're talking about a race of people, the Denis, who lived for centuries.
Yeah.
So I don't think we have complete knowledge of the art, and therefore the Millers in particular can hide behind that fact if they want to be able to play around with it and be like, well, do we really know all the secrets of the art? It's kind of lost to time.
Right. We haven't read Book of Dunny yet. I have not read Book of Dunny yet specifically, so that may be something that's answered, although we have heard that Book of Dunny is rushed, for lack of a better term. And who knows, Book of Merim, if it ever comes out, might explain some stuff too.
We can only hope.
Yeah. all that aside, there's other changes to the game that don't contradict as much and rather flesh out the world in ways that kind of help it a lot, I think, and also streamline some bits that were just there for gamification, I feel. So we do see the Star Fissure in Riven. In the original version, it's mentioned in Book of Atris. It is this large fissure that drops into a starry expanse.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the, shot from Myst, one of the most famous shots, guy falling into a fissure of stars. That is the starry expanse.
Yes.
Gen starts doing experiments on this as soon as he's able to kind of contain the cataclysm because all the air starts rushing into the expanse.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So he's able to contain it. Gen's not dumb.
No, of course not.
He's really, really intelligent.
But I think the problem with his intelligence is that it makes him feel like he's superhuman.
Right. Well, we'll get to Gen more.
Mm-hmm.
But he manages to get it sealed using these big metal plates, and then he starts running experiments. And by experiments, I mean you have wronged me or you have wronged the people, you go in the fissure.
Oh, human experiments.
Yes. And to Gen's surprise, it's not lethal.
So people are just hanging out there, starving to death?
They don't really detail it beyond he's tossing people in. My imagination is he's actively running experiments. So he probably has them on a line and then they pull them back out.
After how long, though?
I do not know. We are literally getting this from one line in a journal.
I was going to say, this feels, okay, gross. I'm here for the gross.
So, Gen has always been troubled. We'll touch on more of his troubles when we get to later on in the game, but...
Oh, God, is he troubles? Man, from a mile away... Oh,
big red flag.
Oh gosh. Yeah, our episodes about, if you really want to have a bad time, and our episodes about the Book of Tiana are which one?
Great book.
First of all, great book. Super dark though.
Super dark, terrible end.
Super dark. The ending's gonna make you cry.
Oh, you're gonna cry at the end of this.
No. Okay, so I don't know if the audience is ready for me to cry. We're fishing people out, possibly on a line.
Yes.
And we're going to see what happens to them.
Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised if he let them stay there and then dry age like beef jerky, which is totally horrible and wrong, but that's very Gen.
Wow. So he,
I horrified you. I win this episode.
He does other things too. He charts the stars. He sees they're cyclical. Like he's doing experiments and trying to figure out where did they go.
Okay. Experiments assume that there's a hypothesis he's trying to
His hypothesis
disprove.
At this point is Catherine and Atris jumped into a fissure. How are they not dead? Like, okay,
that's not a hypothesis. That's an investigatory story. Question. Excuse me.
His hypothesis probably is you can live in the starry expanse.
Okay.
Things start getting more problematic for Gen though when more star fissures start opening up around the islands,
which is
new.
It's new, but it kind of helps raise the tension of the idea that Riven is on its last leg, so to speak.
Yes. And so I was wrong about one thing during my recent Let's Play of it, in that I said, oh, you can see it's all falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
And there's these cracks out in the ocean.
Yeah.
I don't think they are.
They're not cracks?
I did surmise this during the Let's Play as well, that they are vents in the ocean, and because of the way water works on Riven, those vents are pumping out heat that the water just moves away from because the water is saturated with this weird microorganism. that reacts to heat.
Oh, interesting. So the water you have in Riven is less like regular water and more kind of like thickened water due to these microbiomes.
It's thickened when there's heat around. It reacts like a jelly around heat. In fact, one of the best rides in the original Riven, and it's still kind of cool. The rides aren't as great in this one, but I think that's because VR would just make you nauseous if they were
if
as
they
roller
were
coastery.
I agree.
But one of the best rides in the original, and it still is the minecart, which goes through a underwater tunnel, like not under the water, like it goes underwater and then through the water, and the water's held back by rings of heaters.
Oh,
yeah. So, and we knew Riven had weird water from Book of Atris because it doesn't obey gravity if there's heat.
Right. I forgot about that part.
Yeah.
Which also makes sense why when Catherine, or I'm going to refer to her as Katran because that's her actual name. She just tolerates her husband calling her the wrong name.
Here's the funny thing, and I noticed this throughout Gen's journals.
Yeah.
It's not all the time, but there's a few times where he writes Katran, scratches it out, and writes Catherine.
Interesting.
And I wonder if that's like a disownment. Because he knew her as Katran.
Yes, he was going to marry her as Katran.
Yeah.
And then Atris ran away with her as Catherine.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a Venom thing. Like you don't even respect who you are. Which, this makes perfect sense character-wise. So let me go on a little journey with you all. Let's think about this. Gen's whole point is that he is the pinnacle of the Denis because he doesn't know anybody else from the Denis survive or exist. He's the last vestige of it, and therefore he is a god. That is kind of where his brain has gone. And he fully embraces what he thinks are Denis principles and culture, even though he's completely ignorant of it and hasn't even bothered to learn from his mother what she willingly learned.
I think he was 12 when Dunny fell.
Yeah.
Maybe 16 if I remember the math. I don't remember the math exactly, but it's not like he goes in the guild at 4.
Yeah,
and
gross.
I think it's 8 years later, so I think
about there. So he's about
I don't know if I'm remembering 100% accurately cuz Dunny, like that book is weird with the time jumps, but
yeah, it has a lot more time jumps than the Book of Atris. I mean, Book of Atris kind of fronts end its time jumps, and then after a point, it steadies out.
Yeah.
So, but here's my takeaway, though. Gen is trying to embrace everything that makes him Denis, which is the superior side. And then there's Atris, who he feels is too human.
Yeah.
Or too not Denis. Because we don't even know, because we only know that Atris is a quarter human, technically. We don't know the origin of his mother. And so...
We do.
Oh, wait, what is she from?
So I realized when I was reading the journals in the new Riven that Gen mentions a race called the Ahmad.
The Ahmad, okay.
And I looked up the Ahmad on the wiki in prep for this recording. And there are people on the surface of Earth, so they are human.
Oh.
Yeah.
So Atris is 3/4 human certifiably within the current canon, we'll say. Okay. So he's too human. He was too human to teach. So Gen is like trying to figure out a race that's Denis enough to kind of bring back to Denis because that's his short-sighted way of doing it. So he thought he found it in Riven with Katran because Katran is really good at writing the art. Like to the point where I remember you stating that, in the Book of Atris realizes this is why Gen wants her because she can do such fantastical things that would help with his godhood.
Yeah. She literally calls it dreaming.
Yeah. And when she rejects all that and she decides to reject what Gen believes is Denis, it makes perfect sense that he's like, if you're rejecting you are rejecting a superior part of you, and you've accepted inferiority, And so I will give you your inferior name that my inferior son has given you.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense why he did that. I really that's a really nice touch. Yes, I am. That's amazing. I'm so glad you did that. All right. I'm sorry. I'm interrupting your flow here.
Yeah. So there's more starfishers opening up, and he has to contain them. So he contains them the same way he contains the main starfisher. He puts metal plates around them, and they're forming up in the airs most of the time, it feels. Like there's...
What?
Yeah. So there's this... They've rearranged the map a bit. The spinning dome that was by the big golden dome in the original game has been like shifted all the way over near that 5-chambered room that rotates. And that spinning dome is up in the air on top of a bunch of metal plates that is containing a fissure.
What the heck?
So, yeah, these spinning domes, it turns out, are not super crazy at the start of this whole thing. They are simply airlocks so that Gen can go into the star expanse to run experiments. Because he's like, well, if everyone else is surviving, let me see what's happening inside. And decides to go in himself, but he's not going to drop himself down a hole. Like, he wants to build a catwalk to walk on and...
Oh, yeah, he's too princely to do anything like that, honestly.
Too paranoid, I'd say.
I would say it's a combination of the two.
Considering I could not find it, but I swear I read in the Let's Play. I couldn't find it going through my videos, and nobody's transcribed the journals yet. But
somebody's working on that right now, yeah. I guarantee.
If they have, I haven't found it yet. But
okay.
I swear I read in one of the journals that Gen is so paranoid now about being stuck without resources that in all of his subsequent worlds that he's been writing since being trapped on Riven, he writes in all the base materials needed for books and ink and stuff as part of the world.
Man. Well, I do think there can be kindness and paranoia. It's just that Gen's not the kind of person that would have that.
So these domes act as airlocks, and he goes into the starry expanse. Mm-hmm. And weirdly, like, he's like, it is breathable, but not in a way you'd expect.
Oh, yeah. How does that feel?
He says it feels like the expanse is breathing you.
Oh, interesting. So kind of like you're in an iron lung.
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing.
So the pressure is moving your lungs. You're not moving the air around it.
Yeah,
okay.
And so the basic idea from what I can gather, it's done in very weird language.
Broad, fantastical strokes, I imagine.
But the thing that I kind of gather from it is that the star expanse is kind of like a nodal thing that branches to other ages. Like, it is a reality through which links go.
Okay, that is definitely not anything we talked about in the first version of Riven.
No, because none of this was in the first version.
Yeah, like, there's never been, and I don't know, it might be different in Uru and the Book of Denis, but we've never had an idea that a self-contained world that's written with the art can ever be connected, even metaphysically, with another world.
Right. And again, I may be misinterpreting that, but that was my impression of it being like a place that it's kind of like quantum foam.
Quantum foam.
Yeah,
okay.
Which is we're talking like theoretical physics at that point.
Oh, okay.
Quantum mechanics at that point.
Yeah, we're not equipped for that, but
no.
If somebody wants to suggest a physicist who can give us a rundown on that, we'd love to talk about it.
So he goes in here and he's like, for the most part, Gen is stuck. His books aren't working. They're all failing.
Yeah, because
he doesn't have enough resources to make a lot of test books.
But he has these other worlds he can go to and get the resources?
No, he doesn't. So I jumped the timeline a little bit there. When he finally gets an age that works, he starts writing more test cases, like more test worlds, and all of those test worlds, he's writing like all the resources in if they work.
Oh.
So, but in the Starry Expanse, he does find something interesting. It's almost like an endless supply of energy there.
Okay.
And he theorizes that if he can figure out how to harness it,
okay,
he can use it to kind of force a book to work, like smooth over all the errors in the imperfections of the paper and everything, and it'll just work. This is kind of what we do in the original Myst, or not original Myst, the original Riven.
Okay.
The big golden dome is there to power his linking book domes that are scattered around, because at that point all the golden domes are in that game is basically so he doesn't have to walk far to get to his linking book.
Right.
Here the golden domes are him able to access and fast travel between the islands through the Starry Expanse.
Okay.
Yeah. In the original game, the golden domes just had a linking book to his only working age that he managed to build here. Here, they link together.
So they're
the Starry
network.
Expanse.
They're an actual network.
And it's weird. So Riven is for all intents and purposes, a 2D plane. It is the surface of a world. Mm-hmm. Okay. In the Starry Expanse, the bridges come from all different angles towards a center point that you have to rotate around in 3D space. It's kind of a trip.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like it. Oh my gosh. Wait, but this feels as dangerous as discovering atomic power.
Yes. In fact, he does eventually figure out that he can use fire marbles to hold this energy.
Oh, no.
And he puts too much power into them, and people die from this experiment.
Does it implode, explode? What does it do?
It's like this crazy explosion. Again, this is one line in a journal.
Oh,
but
geez.
He eventually figures he has to split this energy into different wavelengths of energy so that he can safely contain it.
So stabilize it. There's a certain... This is, again, it's making me think of atomic power, because with atomic power, certain versions of atoms that we like to split are more stable and safer, quote unquote, to split than others. Because if you have, too many, if it's too ionized in one direction or another, or if it has too many neutrons or too few neutrons, it's just not safe. It's much more chaotic and unstable.
So each dome ends up becoming kind of the point where he can grab one specific wavelength of energy, and then they are literally taken from this energy collection rig by a pneumatic tube back through the fissure into Riven.
Gosh, that sounds scary.
And all the way to the big golden dome. Because here's what I love about this, is in the original, he's having trouble making books. He can't make books, but he makes 5 linking books to his age that he scatters around just for his convenience. Whereas here, he has one working linking book that links to his age.
The desperation is much higher.
Yes. So that one linking book is what you have to power to get to him.
Because that's where he's hiding out, I assume.
That's where he's working. He's not hiding from you. I mean, he is, but...
He is and he isn't. Okay, yeah.
He doesn't want to be here. This place is falling apart.
Yeah.
So...
Leave the little peons behind.
Yeah, and that is the 233rd age, which was in the original game. Mm-hmm. Okay, so far, that is all of that. But there's more.
Of course there's more.
So in the original, you had to find the Moiety, which is still true. You have to find the rebels.
Yeah.
And the way that the rebels did it in the original version was they had eyes with dunny numbers, and that also made sounds.
Right.
Hidden in animal silhouettes. Well, that's all gone.
Okay, so we're no longer looking for images of animals.
We are.
Oh.
But not in the same way.
Okay.
And we're not looking for their eyes. You have to do something else entirely now. So there are they've actually made the culture of the Rivenese even greater here. So there are animal totems scattered around the islands, and nearby there is a painted animal shape that you have to kind of play. You ever play one of those games where you can, if you look at something a certain way, it makes a 2D image in 3D space.
Yes.
Yeah, it's, you can see that at some art exhibits and stuff where if you look at from just the right angle, it's a picture. But if you look from anywhere else, it's just streaky color.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's kind of that idea in a way.
It's like a sculptural version of Monet, pretty much.
Yeah, not quite. It's hard to explain, but basically...
I know what you're talking about, though, yeah.
Here's the genius part. These totems are surrounded by figures, by wooden figures in Rivenese style. Mm-hmm. They're essentially graves.
Oh.
So they are basically grave markers or memorial markers for Rivenese who have died.
Okay.
Buried around sacred totems.
Okay, makes sense.
The totems also have, and this is what the Moiety did, Rivenese numbers in the eye.
Oh.
And this is a new thing. The old game had you learning Dunny.
Okay.
Dunny numbers. This game has you learning Dunny numbers and Rivenese numbers.
Oh.
And you have to know both to work out this world.
Oh my gosh, that's insane.
They do make one thing easier. You no longer have to do a puzzle to get to the schoolhouse. Mm-hmm. You used to have to go through a submarine from the village to get to a schoolhouse. Now you can just walk to the school, which makes so much more sense.
More sense. Makes more practical sense. I understand why they did weird things like that when Riven first came out, because video games were still very much a new art form, and sometimes there was a lot more indulgence in, well, this feels cool, so we should do it.
Yeah.
But I feel like now that the uniqueness of it all has kind of worn off, and you have to tell a genuinely good, compelling story. Good, compelling stories have realistic expectations with cultures.
So there is also one other aspect to these images I haven't really told you yet, and that is that they are invisible.
I'm sorry, what?
It is a invisible paint that it only fluoresces when looked at through a certain type of crystal. And you can find so there's an inventory in this game, unlike the other one, which makes sense, honestly, because Mist Head, you hold a page and that's it, one page, go. Mm-hmm. Riven Head, you have a journal and a page, or you have a journal and another book, and that's it. Then each game either brought, well, Mist 3 didn't. Mist 3 was very Mist-like, but Mist 4, Mist 5, Uru all brought like imagers and recording devices or music player. Uru was weird, but anyway, Mist 5 brings this slate that you can draw on to change the world. Oh. So, yeah, there's inventory management, but there's not much inventory.
Yeah.
By the way, those of you who are playing and are frustrated why you have to keep going to your inventory to pick up this crystal device, there is a key. Look in your key map. It shows up after you find it. That's one of the things that everyone complains about. So,
okay.
Yeah. So you look through this crystal device and you can see the images. And you can look at this crystal device while looking through things as well, like looking through cameras or whatever, because Gen has cameras and stuff.
Oh, so that's right. He does.
You can use this and you might see images through other images, which is weird, but okay. Mm-hmm. This all leads to the fact that the village itself has also changed.
Okay. I'd expect that, to be honest.
Yeah. Surprisingly, they got rid of people.
What?
There in the original game, there was, a woman and a child, would come, she would grab the child and run off.
Yeah, the child kind of ran away from her.
There was another one where a child would appear in the jungle and run away from you. Those are gone.
Yeah.
Somebody said that they got rid of the guy in the watchtower. They didn't. I saw him. So.
Okay. There's a guy in a watchtower. Is there the door that you knock on too much and then the person peeks out?
Apparently there is. I did not bother to check.
Okay.
I did see the priest that runs away from you. So there's still some interaction, but you hear as you're so you can walk through the village now and you can hear kids crying inside a house or whatever. So
that, I think, to be honest, would increase one's nervousness and paranoia about the whole situation.
Yeah,
because
it would be nice to see a little bit more life.
I think it kind of heightens a little bit of the horror and fear that you should be experiencing as the stranger in this instance. Mm-hmm. So you have to think about it in a sense of unseen people, especially if you don't know their voice, are in a lot of ways to a human mind unpredictable.
That's fair.
We are built to be very dependent on sight. So to hear something in the distance that you don't understand, or to hear something softly you don't understand, and it's only faint, always triggers this like ancient prey response we have from like millions of years ago.
Fair. I don't want to touch too much on the changes to the village because that does start veering into puzzles.
Well,
almost.
Obviously there's stuff that makes more sense, like walking into a school.
Yeah. But they also smoothed out the submersible, but now there's also this rock island in the middle with a giant 5-pointed star and a podium where Gen can speak out to the village.
That makes sense. Cult leader vibes. There you go.
And then we have the work gallows, which didn't change a ton.
Okay.
But it did change in one way. Mm-hmm. In the original, when you lowered the work gallows to step on, you could see that there was just a pair of manacles. So like someone would be manacled and then lowered down to the work that would eat them.
Yes.
Okay. This time, I think it was like 5 pairs of manacles that could be attached to the thing.
So the thing would eat...
Yeah. I was like, ooh, that's a...
5 at... So my question is it at once, or is it like it only grabs 2 at a time and it comes back
I don't know.
More? Like that...
Either way, you're underwater at that point.
Right. Well, like it pulls all of them down?
No, the thing goes underwater.
Oh.
So you are drowning and eaten.
Yeah, I think I'd rather be eaten than drown at that point. Yeah.
Also, there were manacles in the sub.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I guess if he's going to take him to his experiments.
I doubt he did anything. He has people who are on his side. Weirdly enough, so we do learn this actually through Catherine's journal. I don't know if this was in the original. Maybe I just didn't remember it. But in Catherine's journal, she talks about how the Moaiti, the rebels, and the Gen loyalists live together fine. It's like out of house, don't care what you do. Like,
interesting.
They live side by side, and there's no fighting. There's no strife. It's
like this is only in very particular instances where we have the beef is only on this battlefield essentially. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
So we eventually do make our way to Tay, which is the Moaiti base, the one that Catherine writes for them using a book that Gen had tossed aside, thinking it was defective before he discovered his crazy fire marble energy projection stuff.
And of course, Gen, not really being intellectually curious, wouldn't really know what makes a book defective. I mean, Book of Atris in particular proved that that's a failing of his.
Right. And it's interesting because he has to do this crazy, basically atomic power level hijinks. Meanwhile, the Moaiti and Catherine figure out that a small 1-pound crystal can fix the image enough to link. The Rivenese are very good with crystals. Like the crystal thing you use, that's because it's their artistry and their tech. This crystal imager is their thing too.
Well, it just kind of reminds me how in different cultures people just think and perceive things differently. You know, the idea of let's just think about it in the terms of land ownership.
Right.
Land ownership was really a westernized thing that was brought over to a lot of other places. They would end up colonizing places where they'd be like, what do you mean own land? You can't own what are you talking about? Own the land. The land owns itself. We're happy to live on it while it's happy to have us, you know.
I may be misremembering that actually, because I remember Catherine having to write in. So I remember how this goes actually. So they have to get to Gen's powering thing to power this book of hers that she wrote, so they can send a party in to retrieve this crystal that she writes in, and then they have to leave before Gen comes back.
So it's
but either way, it's like Rivenis adept level crystal working, and then, well, if I take this crystal and write in some special properties in this age that I'm writing, we can use it then to power the book. There's some aspect of Rivenis ingenuity there too.
Right, but if crystals are more their art and their culture and something that they appreciate, and then you have this blowhard Gen who thinks that he's the be-all end-all of this age that he thought that he wrote. Because again, here's another thing too. It's not until Book of Tiana that we know that we're linking to worlds that already exist. You're not creating them.
I mean, we had the idea of that in Book of Atris.
But we didn't confirm it really until we covered Book of Tiana.
Yeah, that's true, because Viavis, that's the one bridge Viavis won't cross. He's like, you're not a god.
Yeah, you're not a god. You're a traveler, not a creator in the same way. This is the thing, though. Gen doesn't know that.
Right.
Gen thinking that he's brought all of this into existence because he wrote.
Yeah.
Either he wrote or he discovered the book to Riven, and then he changed it enough to make his own or whatever, and he decided it was his.
It is interesting. In both the original and in the remake, there is the passage from Gen being like, if I could write you back into life, talking about Keta, if I could write you back into life, I would turn my back on all of this and just let it turn.
There's no way that's true, though. That's the lie he tells himself.
Right, but he tells himself, if I could write you back into life, like I think he knows he's not a god, because if he was, he could do that. You know,
I think he thinks himself as inferior, and that's the one moment where he lets himself admit that.
That's true.
But he might think he is half god. He might think himself a demigod.
That's fair.
He is Hercules to the Zeus that is his father. Like, he honestly thinks that I personally, with the way that he's characterized, now I haven't played the games as much as you have, so I'd be interested to see what other people feel as well, who know the universe better. But it feels like to me, he has an inferiority complex that he's constantly adjusting for. And one of the ways he does this is elevating his ego amongst what he considers to be lesser people.
Right.
Hence the whole game at Riven, that he controls all this stuff and he's their master and he's made himself a god and they have to listen to him and all that stuff. So when he's by himself and he thinks about his regrets, I don't think he thinks he's not a god. I think he believes, I have been stolen the ability to write you back thanks to my mother or whatever it is.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
And because that was stolen from me, I will forever not have my full potential.
Yeah.
I honestly think that's more where he's coming from than admitting that he's not. I think he still thinks himself a god.
Yeah. So in Tay, when we first get there, we are darted and dragged to Tay like normal.
Yep.
And it used to be that this is where you'd end in Tay. You'd wake in a cell, you'd be given the book back to Riven, along with the trap book and Catherine's journal, and the only recourse you could have is to kind of peek outside your door, and that'd be it. Now, you can leave.
Oh, really?
Again, not many people around here. There's a lot of guards with weapons.
They're making sure you're not going to do anything dumb.
Yeah. But there are a couple things we do see. First is, there is a shrine to Catherine.
A shrine?
Yes. There is a Rivenese sculpture of Catherine with stuff at her feet.
Is she okay with this?
No. In fact, in her journal, she talks about how when she first realized that she was like this savior.
Yeah.
And they were describing the battle between her and Gen with Atris. It was everything she could do to not laugh.
Right.
Because it was so grandiose and so insanely, like, powerful.
She's so humble that the idea of her having power over these people just feels ridiculous. I mean, it's funny because for her, it's absurd. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm just I could teach you how to, anybody could do this. Which, first of all, I don't think anybody could do what she can do. So, give yourself more credit, Katron. Second of all, it makes sense because her husband, Atris, is always like, oh no, that would be bad. Like, I could do that, and there's a reason why I very explicitly don't do that. Like, and it's less absurd and more horrifying.
Sometimes to a fault, almost.
Well, he thought his sons would automatically understand. Obviously, he didn't think to teach them
sometimes
ethics.
To a fault.
Oh my gosh, why were they such bad? They're such good people, and they're such bad parents, and it makes me mad. Mad.
I did see a discussion online.
Mm-hmm.
Of did Gen ever know or meet Cirrus and Achenar? And no, there's no way. Like, canonically, there's no way.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting how much Cirrus and Gen
have
share
in common. It's almost, unfortunately, like a family trait. I don't know if I'm not a clinician.
Skipped a generation.
Yeah, I'm not a clinician.
Skipped multiple generations because Atris, Aitrus, and his father were not like that.
And maybe it came from the mother's side. We don't talk
she
about
wasn't
her
like
family.
that either.
But we don't talk about her family. Maybe there's a reason why. But also, again, I'm trying to say I'm not a clinician, but it feels like a little bit of narcissistic personality disorder. It feels a little bit possibly, I remember when we first talked about Cirrus and Achenar, the idea of like sociopath and psychopath, where one of them is, not in touch with a conscience and therefore feels like that it's easier for them to do might makes right, and therefore the other one, so Cirrus had that, and then Achenar used that to torment his brother to make his brother bend to his will, which kind of made his brother more violent and flip. Yeah,
flip. Achenar was the one who was bent by Cirrus.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, I misheard you then.
Or at least that's what I should be saying. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, that Cirrus is essentially the one who was born without a conscience.
Yeah.
I don't think Gen was born without a conscience. I think Gen is a product of trauma.
Yes.
I think
Gen is a product of trauma and a product of bullying.
Well, that's the source of the trauma. Yeah.
Well, he has multiple traumas to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, yes. The trauma of when he went through being born as well is just...
Yeah, the trauma of him being born.
That affects you profoundly in ways that there are people who are some of the worst criminals we've known in history who have had upbringings where the first, year of their life had so much strife and they didn't bond well with other people, and that's why they can do what they do.
Yeah. But yeah, from birth, remember, Gen was... Mm-hmm. Better off dead.
Right.
Not worth saving.
You know, and it turned out all he needed was some sun. Like literally just vitamin D.
Yeah.
That was, and the Denis could not even understand or comprehend that other alien races would need that per se. So I don't think it's a genetic trait. There is... and I see Mystic is kind of like, I have all this other stuff to talk about, but the characterization of them, it just keeps expanding with the world building as well.
I know there's more.
I know, but I just want to say quickly that you could also link it to epigenetics if you really think of it, that the trauma of Gen shapes the generations, even though he's not raising them.
Okay,
and it's kind of like they've made studies that generations that have had a lot of like historical stress, their children and grandchildren actually react to stress or trauma in similar fashions. All right, you've got so much more to go through. I know.
So we passed Catherine's shrine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gosh, yeah. I can imagine how she feels.
And eventually work our way down to this hut, which has the only reason it's there is to be a linking book room. There's just the linking book back to Riven there. The only reason I want to mention this is it is covered in Moiety daggers.
Oh, so the symbol of the game itself, right? Are those the daggers we're
the
talking?
The symbol of the original, they changed the symbol for the remake to being a very stylized fish, which is actually, I think, called the Riven fish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, these things are everywhere in the game, in the village. You see them drying in the sun everywhere. It's kind of crazy.
Oh, okay, interesting. But, so the original symbol is this dagger, the Moaiti dagger.
The triangle dagger with the circle and the cross. And yeah. And my headcanon, because I have no idea why, there's no reason for these to be here, is either it is these are memorial for people who have been lost in the struggle.
Yeah.
But that seems like a lot of people.
Yeah.
Or the only book in here is to Riven, making it tied to Gen.
Yeah.
And we do see an effigy of Gen that is completely covered in stabbed with daggers.
Oh.
So I don't know why it's there. It looks gnarly, but anyway, we leave Tay with the prison book we need. Go to the 233rd
and the room of
age.
daggers. Could it just be weapon storage?
Maybe they grab one as they leave.
Yeah. It's like, I'm going to have to handle something today. Let me get this.
233rd age. Once we trap Gen, nothing there changes because they didn't change actors. It's still John Kenston, who has passed away from COVID. So
yeah,
they didn't change any dialogue at all for Gen.
And re-motion acted by someone who studied his particular style of acting. Yeah.
You can walk outside of his lab into the 233rd age. And this is where we get a little bit more about Gen. There's a couple artifacts out here that he has built into this age or had built into this age by workers.
Oh, okay.
The first is there is a solar spit roast that he is roasting a creature on. He is having a barbecue. Not even joking. I thought it was a radar dish or something. I turned and looked at it, and there's just a creature on a spit. Okay.
I mean, he's got to eat somehow.
Right. No, I wasn't bothered by it, but just not what I expected.
Makes sense.
The other one is there is a bunch of graves. Rivenese graves here with a totem. Not a statue totem. Again, would probably never allow that to be built, but there is a painted or etched totem carved into the rock. Gen is still Gen, though. Down the stairs is a throne that he has built. There's two things in the fire pit. One is the 234th age book, which is you can catch a glimpse of a cool-looking age before it burns too much and it fades.
Oh, wow.
And the other thing in the fire pit is the remnants of a Rivenese grave.
He's what?
He is literally just using their grave markers as kindling, as firewood.
Oh, man. Big colonizer energy right there.
Right?
Jeez. I feel awful.
Now, there is one other thing that we can talk about when it comes to changes in the lore. Because the only other thing after 233rd, we get Catherine out. She goes and gets the Rivenese back to Tay.
Yes.
And Mass. Just, everyone come with me.
Yeah.
And then we open up the fissure. Atris comes. We fall in the fissure after he leaves. Because that's how we get home, is going through the fissure. Because that's where the book that we originally found for Mist went through. So obviously it leads and it's survivable and all that stuff.
Exactly. So that's how we get home. Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's all that stuff. But in terms of new lore, there is one more thing. There is Gen's Imager. In the previous game, this did have an image. It had a video of Keta talking.
Yeah.
This one also has Keta, same exact lines, nothing new. She is devoted to Gen.
Okay.
But in the back of Gen's journal, so this one, unlike the original, has codes that you can type in. In the back of Gen's journal, there's 3 codes. Keta, which is what it was left on. Mm-hmm. That's why we can see Keta with no problems. There is a code for Atris, Aitrus, and a code for Anna, and we can see messages from Atris and Anna.
Wait, from when though?
So Atris is definitely before he dies.
Yeah. What was it? Wait. Like right before he dies? Like, okay.
No, we're talking at least a few years before. He is talking.
Like he was, like this is when he was doing his apprenticeship. When Gen was doing his apprenticeship, it's possibly like a note that...
We don't know because he's not talking again.
Okay. Oh.
He is talking to Anna in broken English.
Oh, man. Okay.
And saying how... I don't remember what he asks her in Dunny. He goes, what's the English word for something? I can't remember what it is.
Yeah.
But it essentially translates to scum from above, which is what people called her.
Wow.
And he goes, they should have been better towards her. What does it mean for the Dunny if they can't embrace a new world and new people?
Huh.
And then he calls her his angel.
Right.
My angel from above.
So this could have been his personal diary at this point. It sounds like I don't know.
No, like he's like, you want a recording? Something you remember? Okay. Like
okay.
Then we get to Anna's, which is clearly post Fall of Dunny.
Oh wow.
She's still younger here. This is maybe a year or two only after, I would say. All right, because she's still wearing Dunny clothes. So she still has Dunny clothes. She hasn't changed back into, more appropriate clothes for a desert.
Desert, yeah.
And she is distraught. Calls herself you called me an angel of death. Like, saying she should never have brought her views and ideals to Dunny as they led to its destruction and Atris's death. She's talking to Atris.
Yeah.
At this one. And somehow, and she doesn't understand how, her love and compassion led to the fall. And she is sorry for the life Atris and Gen could have had if she hadn't intervened in that way. Now, again, this is clearly a much younger Anna.
Yeah.
She still blames herself, I feel, in Book of Atris, but I feel like she's come to terms with it more.
I think she understands she was not the full problem and that something was going to happen anyway, especially because when we covered the Book of Tiana, she finds out it technically had already happened before.
Yes.
In the sense of other people from other worlds had come and interacted with the Dunny before.
Yeah, people from Aegis had come and interacted with the Dunny and been part of Dunny society in way back in history.
Right. For all we know, a lot of the people there are possibly descended.
And here's the crazy part. I did not know this, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, but there are Dunny who left to the surface and just weren't heard from again.
Whoa. What?
I did not know this until...
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That is a big deal. Why would they leave? Other than explorers who just were never heard of again?
Or sometimes, why stay here where I know everything when there's a world up there?
So true frontiers people, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not always necessarily for nefarious or
bad
purposes.
I didn't necessarily think it was for a nefarious reason, but I find it interesting that their culture would find people with that kind of curiosity and probably would acclimate. So, and where canonically again was Tiana coming from? That desert, that the
New Mexico area.
New Mexico area. That means canonically in this world, and I don't know the Native American nations that were in that part of New Mexico or any of that, but you think about that part of the world and people traversing a desert because they're ready to be frontiers people in this age, one of the most masterful ages that's ever been created, and they said, you know what, I'm just going to explore this age we happen to be easily connected to. You could theoretically say that some of those people now could be part Denis in like very infinitesimal amounts, and you wouldn't even know.
Right, which is how we get to, eventually how we get to Uru, which is why everyone who is playing Uru canonically has Dunny blood.
And how do we prove that?
We'll get there.
Okay.
But yeah.
So there's a okay. So that's part of the Uru project, is to rebuild a Denis with those who might even only be like.
No, it's not. But we'll get there.
Oh, all right. But even before the fall of Denis, there was.
We don't know when, but yes, there were people who left Dunny to go on Earth, like up on the surface
in mass, like a group. I
don't know if
in
it was
Exodus.
in mass. I know nothing more than what I've told you.
Okay.
It was one line that I read earlier today, because again, I haven't delved into Uru beyond what we played.
Right, which was more.
Yeah, which is why it was one of my selections for Let's Plays for our patrons, and it is on the list now.
Oh, okay.
So one other thing that we actually do see that's different is we see Atris. So we no longer have that old looking man picture as our summation for who that is.
Oh, yeah.
So we don't know who that old man is that we saw in the original. And here's the other wrinkle in that is the book has his face stamped on it.
Wait, which book? Which book is this again?
But all the age books or linking books we see have his face like embossed on it. I don't know who he is. My guess is going to be a guildmaster, maybe
an old man's face.
An old man. So the only thing I can surmise is he is prominent in Gen's room. He is clearly not Atris. Atris died much younger than that old man.
Yeah, because Atris he died before he hit 100, and he wasn't expected to look old until he got to be past that age.
Yeah. So I don't know who this old man is, but my guess is a very prominent figure in Gen's life. And I'm going to guess it's the one who basically sparked in him the idea of Dunny superiority, which was the guildmaster for the Guild of Bookmakers.
Yeah.
So it would make sense for a linking book to have his stamp on the cover.
That's so egotistical. But if that's one of Gen's heroes, of course, the guy who's decided that he reminds you who he is by putting his face in every book you ever use.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the kind of ego that Gen's trying to uphold.
Yeah. I've seen some people argue that's totally still Atris, and I don't see it. Because that guy, first off, it's a Photoshop of a Civil War era like picture.
Yeah.
It looks old.
Yeah, if you read the Book of Tiana, Atris with an I never gets that old.
No.
So
like Gen he's maybe in his 70s at the most. He lives to 300.
Yeah.
Like we know that the old guys look old.
Oh yeah, they're going to look wizened as all heck. But yeah, so there's this hint of the quote unquote corrupting influence again, which kind of goes back to my idea that he's a product of trauma.
Right.
He's not inherently like that. It's just his world's forced him to be like that.
Yeah.
And when you spend less time with your parents who are good and instead spend more time with an egotistical guildmaster who tells you how superior you are.
Right.
And you don't, of course you create somebody like Gen who doesn't even want to acknowledge the fact that he could be inferior just because that's how things work in the world.
Right.
You know, the humility is shot. All the good features from his parents taught away.
Yeah. And again, the only thing I have to back this up is the fact that the Atris we see also clearly doesn't even have the same facial features.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he is clearly a different person to me. I mean, Cyan may come out and say, yeah, that totally is Atris and whatever. Fine, I'm wrong. But
and then they're going to have to explain that one.
So,
okay. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting mystery. I want to solve that one. Well, wow. So that's a lot of really... I like the changes, too. Like, the changes are really fleshing out the world, expanding on it, making it feel more real, more captivating. It was already really well done, especially considering the time it was produced in. And probably still... The original Riven still has a richer story than a lot of games that people try to push on the public.
Yeah. Are there flaws in the remake? Sure.
Well,
but a lot of the flaws to me feel technical in nature more than world building in nature. Things like the islands feel very close.
Okay.
But at the same time, were they always that close, or was the fog in the original version to save on rendering time?
Yeah.
Made it seem further. Add some more fog. Will I be able to tell the difference? Probably not.
And on top of that, we also have to keep in mind that this world's changed a lot within a few decades.
Yeah.
Which means that land masses would probably change drastically too.
Yeah. The only thing I do wish that Cyan would do is fix your screenshot resolution.
Cyan, what are you doing to us?
You can take screenshots in the game, which are added to your notebook in-game. Like, not a diegetic notebook, but a menu that says notebook, and it has all your screenshots. And I couldn't read, like, half of all these Rivenese numbers here.
Then what's the point of the screenshot? So, unless that's, like, some custom feature or some option that you're supposed to be able to toggle with. That's
I did have to take notes, actually, which for Riven was surprising, considering...
Yeah, you know that series pretty well.
I know it.
Because you had to learn 2 different number systems.
Yeah,
They love playing with number systems over at Cyan, too. I mean... It
was fun. I enjoyed it. I highly recommend the game. So...
Yeah.
Either way, you'll be playing that Thursday. Yeah. Maybe we'll start you a little bit into the game, though, so you're not just stuck at the opening where we all know the basics already.
Right. That's fair. We'll figure that out. And we hope you join us. So that's the Thursday after this airs to the public. And we are still doing alternate Thursdays. Firewatch.
Only for a few more episodes, though. Then it's Mass Effect 2.
And should we mention, Mystic, that since we are doing Gen Con... There will come a Thursday where we will not be.
We'll figure that out.
Yeah. We have to do a little bit of math. Keep an eye on the socials, and we're going to let you guys know what our updated end of July, early August schedule will be. It'll probably be just like 1 week where something's a little wackadoo. So
yeah, we'll catch you guys at the streams and next episode. And
yeah, everywhere else you want to hang out with us. Thanks so much for listening.
Bye.
Bye.